Hello, friends, and welcome to the PowHERful podcast. I'm your host, AJ McCord. In this podcast, we introduce you to powerful women who are changing the game in and outside of their field of play. These are women's stories, women who happen to be doing things that many of us can only dream of, but the lessons and inspiration they share is universal. Welcome back to the PowHERful podcast. You guys, I cannot wait to introduce you to a sport that is pretty new to me and getting more popular by the second. This is a sport called Skijoring, which is basically where a skier gets towed behind a horse and has to do jumps and find rings, and it's fascinating. It has origins in Europe, but there are two young college students in Colorado, Marley and Megan, who are just learning how to do this sport. It's gaining popularity and they are on the forefront of it. Two young women trying out a new sport in a very male-dominated sport, and it's so cool to learn about this through their eyes, to get excited about something new. I hope you guys like this episode and get on Skijoring TikTok, y'all, because that is how I found these guests, and I am so happy that I did. All right, so right now I am going to introduce you to a brand new sport, which is, well, new to us. It's actually a very old sport in the history of the world, but it's called Skijoring, which is basically where you get towed on skis behind a horse and go off of jumps. It is something that has become a bit of a cult sport in Leadville, Colorado, and two of the women who are trying to make their mark in this sport are Marley and Megan. They are students at Colorado State University, and I'm so excited to have you guys on the podcast. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, AJ. We're so excited to be here.
Yeah, we're so excited to talk about this sport and just get to know you and share who we are.
So much fun. So I guess first off, I tried to explain the sport. Why don't you guys, as the ones who are actually competing and participating in it, why don't you explain to everybody what the heck is Skijoring? And am I even saying that correctly?
Well, yeah, you're pretty close. We usually try and say Skijoring.
Okay, so more like a zh than a jump.
Yeah, a little bit
Yeah.
of zhuzh to it. But you pretty much hit the nail on the head. It's getting pretty competitive in Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, even a little bit of Utah, and also Canada as well. But yeah, essentially a horse pulls a skier at high speeds, and the skier goes through an obstacle course, essentially, of jumps and turns and grabbing rings in some of the events. And even some of them, the horse and rider also have rings to grab or obstacles to go through. And so, yeah, it's a timed event and, penalties for missing gates, which are the turns, or, certain jumps or rings. But yeah, it's really, really fun.
So how did well, I guess first and foremost, who's the skier and who's the rider, or do we switch off?
So I'm the skier. I get pulled by her. I've been skiing for pretty much my whole life. So it's just been super, super cool to get to know this sport and be pulled by Megan. It's just the most fun.
Yeah, and I've had my horse for about 5 years. I've been riding pretty much my whole life. So it's just been really fun. It's been kind of something I wanted to do since I learned about it years ago. So it's really cool that we've gotten the opportunity to try it this year.
So how did you learn about it, Megan? How did this, because I don't know how I got on Skijoring TikTok, but I did. And I have ties to Leadville, Colorado. And so I saw it and I kind of knew that it was a thing, but it does feel like it's taken off in the last few years.
Yeah, it's growing in popularity rapidly, I think, especially with social media and stuff like that, all of the videos and, edits that people are making. But I first really saw it and got introduced to it 2 years ago in Big Sky, Montana. They have a huge competition there, and people travel and stuff like that. I was going to school out there. So it was just really cool to see it. I got to volunteer at the event and help out and stuff like that. And it was just such a cool world to be immersed in. Everyone's so nice and friendly, and it's just such an adrenaline sport, which is definitely, I think, both of our kind of thing. So yeah, and then ever since seeing it, I just really wanted to try it.
Okay, and Marley, as the skier, you're the one who ends up having to get towed everywhere. And so that feels like you have a lot of trust, not only in Megan, but in Megan's horse also.
100%. So I honestly haven't known Megan for that long. So when we first hit the course, I was like, I don't know what this is going to look like. We've known each other since the beginning of this last school year. So, we spent a lot of time working together and getting our horse comfortable with the skis because, that's one big concern is what if he just takes off and isn't about it. But I put a lot of trust in her, and it is definitely a super high intensity sport. So, when you're being pulled at that speed, it's unlike anything else you could feel. Like I've been skiing downhill for pretty much my whole life, and it was a big switch up. But I feel like my experience on the slopes definitely has come in handy. But yeah, it's just a bizarre feeling. It's super cool.
I think so. Probably helped. You have history riding horses as well. So she has a little bit of a background in knowing how to trust an animal like that.
For sure. But it's such a crazy feeling, and it's just super cool. We love it so much.
So take me back to that first conversation. You're like, hey, I'm Marley. Hey, I'm Megan. And also, do you have a horse? Do you have skis? Would you like to do this? Like, how did that come about? Come about? Because like we said, it's a kind of a niche sport. It's a niche sport no matter where you are. And then to like find each other in college and decide to become a team in it. Like, how did that conversation go?
Definitely. So like I said, we met at the beginning of this last school year. And when snow started hitting the ground, we were like, well, we can't ride as much, because that's how we first met each other. We would ride together, and, we became pretty close friends doing that. And then I was like, yeah, I think I'll go to Copper this weekend. And she was like, oh, you ski? And I was like, yeah, I ski. And then it just felt like it was sort of meant to be. Like, I hadn't known of skijoring for as long as she did. And I just had no idea that was something that was in the cards for me at all. But, she's been just super interested in it and really been chasing that and wanting to do that. And, I have enough experience. So I was like, I think I can stay upright. Like, let's give this a go. So, at the end of the day, it honestly just made sense for us to team up and do this. And, it's been a high that we've been chasing ever since, for sure, ever since we hit the course that first time.
Okay, and where was the course that you hit? Because like I know it gets built in Leadville down Main Street every year, which for those of you listening, Leadville is a very small mountain town in Colorado. It's maybe like 45 minutes away from like Breckenridge, Keystone, that area, but it's really small, and every year they build a skijoring course down Main Street. So you have these like buildings that have been up since 1900s, and then they like bring all the snow down Main Street, and then they have this whole huge kind of festival type vibe. It's a race, but there's so many things that go along with it in the town. So where does one practice to be ready for that?
Well, I started practicing with my horse just on pulling objects and stuff like that over a year ago, just because that's definitely a big thing for a horse to get used to, having a rope across their butt and, pulling large objects and, being strong enough to pull that. But we kind of started in December, I think it was, and snow hit the ground, and we just kind of went out to a pasture at the place I was keeping my horse and started pulling you around. And we just went from there. But our first race was in Estes Park, Colorado. So they're kind of all over. There's at least 5 or 6 within, a 4 or 5 hour radius of Fort Collins. And then out from there, there's, 20 to 30 events every year, and they're just growing from there.
So Marley, what did it feel like the first time you got towed? Because I'm trying to imagine, is it anything similar? I don't know if you've done this, but it almost seems like getting towed behind like a boat, like when you're wake surfing or wakeboarding, something like that. Does it feel similar, the way you get pulled up and like pulled kind of forward?
A lot of people make that comparison. I personally don't have any experience with, skiing behind a boat or, wake surfing or wakeboarding, but a lot of people do say that it is comparable. I know that some people as the skier will practice by being towed behind a car or a four-wheeler if they don't have access to a horse. But before we made our debut in Estes Park, we actually practiced one time. There was snow on the ground in the pasture. We were like, this is our chance. It was less than a week away to the event. And we got out there and we're like, well, this horse has never pulled a skier. He's never seen skis. I've never been pulled, but let's do this. So we kind of got out there and we did it, and we took it kind of easy, but we were like, okay, let's sign up for this. Like, I feel like we can do this. So, that was the one and only time we were able to practice before we were on the course and being timed and, having cameras on us. So it was a super spontaneous decision. Like, we had wanted to do it for a long time, but, with Fort Collins, like, we get some snow, but not a super significant amount. So, we got 1.5 inches and we're like, this is our chance. Like, we have to do this right now. So, and both of the events we went to this winter, we went to Estes Park and then Grand Lake, which was about 2 months later. Both of them were those towns' first time hosting a skijoring event. So like we've said, it's growing in popularity like crazy. A lot of the events are sort of like flagship events for those towns. So, as we're learning how to do it, the towns are also learning how to host it. And, it's just figuring out all that dynamic. So, it was definitely out of our comfort zones, but we felt pretty cool hitting one practice run and then just calling it good and just going out there. So
Oh my gosh, as you freaking should. That's incredible to just be like, I'm going to try this one time and then let's just like go test it out on a course. So what was the, well, first off, Megan, I feel like we should know your horse's name.
Apollo.
Apollo, cute. Okay. I mean, he's like the third member of this team here. We could not do this without Apollo. So you both have backgrounds in sort of horseback riding and in skiing, which is very, very helpful for people who are just like getting the grasp of this sport through this podcast. How would you describe what it feels like to be at one of these events and watching this competition?
Just wild, I think. I hear a lot of people say it's the wildest show on snow, which I think is a pretty cool way to put it. If you've ever been to a rodeo and you felt kind of like that anticipation of the in-gate and, the way the crowd gets so into it, it's pretty similar to that. I think as the sport grows, places are having, clowns come out and halftime shows and like all kinds of stuff. The last one, there were like mini horses pulling like carts and skis and flags and all kinds of stuff. But I mean, the environment of it is just so cool. People get all dressed up in their fur coats and their hats and all kinds of stuff. And it's just so fun to be immersed in that world.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so the next question is, were either of you competitive athletes like in either skiing or horseback riding, like before you kind of found this combo that fits you both so well?
I mean, I've been riding since I was 5. So I've competed in hunter jumpers, I've competed in rodeo, I've done barrel racing at drill team, and then also polo. So I've definitely been in the competitive equestrian world for a long time, but this is one of the highest adrenaline sports I think I've ever competed in.
For sure. And then for me, I've been skiing since I was probably about 3. And, you start in ski school. I spent a minimum of 5 years doing that. And then it really just became like a family sport. So I personally have never been competitive except for maybe with my siblings. But
Which counts for the record. That counts.
Thank you. But I've never competed in like ski racing or any of that. It just, it's just kind of been something I've always done.
So with that, what do you feel like this sport is tapping into for each of you? Because Megan, it sounds like you have a little bit of sort of a competitive history, and Marley, girl, the competitiveness with the siblings, the cousins, like whatever. Yeah, no, I get it. Like I get it. So what do you think it is that like it feels like this is kind of like the perfect time for you two to find this like competitive aspect of your life and your sport? What do you feel like this is tapping into for you?
Totally. I think that we're both realizing that we're more competitive than we thought we were, honestly. Like you go out there and it's like, okay, our goal is just to have fun and stay safe. And then you see other people going and you see the times racking up and you're like, I think we could maybe hold our own here. So, in Estes Park, when we were first on the course, like it was an incredible feeling just to make it through the course. You're so zoned in, you're not aware of the crowds or the cameras or the people on the speakers, like you're just going. And so by the time we cross the finish line, I'm shaking like crazy because that adrenaline boost is totally insane. It's unlike anything else. And I didn't even hear our time, but by the time we made it back to the top of the course, I was asking around, I'm like, does anyone know like how we did? Like, I don't think we got any penalties. And someone goes, I think you guys are like in pretty good standing right now. So by the end of the weekend, we ended up, I believe, 4th overall for that day that we competed out of over 30 competitors. So
What?
It was an insane feeling. And, we registered in the novice division, which is the one for people who are newer to this sport. But, it was pretty amazing. And I think we impressed ourselves by kind of holding our own. And, that kind of cemented it for us that we want to be competitive in this sport. We want to take home a buckle. A lot of Skijoring events, first place rider and skier will both be awarded a buckle, like a belt buckle.
Oh.
So that is a big goal for us next season. So, you better watch out because we're coming for you.
I love that. I love that so much. What is like, you bring up next season. So what is the kind of, with a sport that's so new, with a sport that is growing in Colorado, what I mean, you're both going to school also. So what are the goals? What are the dreams with this sport for the two of you?
I mean, I think just fully getting into it is such a huge goal for us. And, getting more into the community and meeting people, getting our name out there, and then just having fun and being competitive. Because, I mean, we're in such a good location for it. Looking around, it was hard to get into this season because it's both of our first years at CSU. Marley's a freshman and I'm a junior. So it was just partly us getting used to CSU and being in school, but then having the opportunity to just go try it out a little bit. I think we're just so hungry for more. And I definitely think winning that buckle is something we really want to do next season.
100%.
And do you have to, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah, totally. So, as we've been getting into it, it's one of those things we've learned that you learn by doing. There's no YouTube tutorial. And we started a TikTok page because we're trying to get the word out there, and we're going to make some educational videos on, simple things like how's our saddle rigged up? What kind of rope do you need? What kind of shoes go on the horse? Because, that's the kind of thing you show up and someone tells you, like, if you're lucky. That's one big thing about getting your name out there and making those connections is that's how you learn. And, just getting out on the course too is just like the number one way that you can learn. So, the community has been so incredibly welcoming and supportive and enthusiastic to see, two young girls like us. There are definitely some other young women in this sport, but, it's largely dominated by, a lot of men, and they have been so welcoming and just have been so eager to teach us and to share their world with us. And that has been so very encouraging to feel so welcome in this sport that we're just so eager to be a part of.
That's awesome because it's very rarely the case when you enter a male dominated space that as a woman, you're like, oh, I feel welcome here. That's really cool. Why do you think that is? Like, what is it about this community that you feel like you're able to step into it so seamlessly?
I think a lot of people doing it just love the sport. It's a lot of like ranchers or rodeo cowboys and that kind of stuff. So they're just looking for a way to keep their horses fit in the winter and travel and maybe make some money. So I think they're just eager to share this world with anyone who's willing to listen and take their advice. So it's really cool that everyone is so kind and welcoming because I don't know that we expected it going into our first competition.
I don't think that we did at all, honestly. It took us by surprise, but the community is just so like happy-go-lucky. Like, I think that's just the best way to describe it. Like, there's really no judgment. Like, sure, people definitely get competitive, but at the end of the day, like when you go to the award ceremony, it's just such a good vibe. Like, everyone is just happy to be there. It doesn't matter if you take home a win or not. Like, people just think it's really cool that, young girls like us are putting in the effort and showing up and doing the heavy lifting to get our name out there and just to be there at all.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think it's so cool because obviously, like, I found you guys on TikTok, and I don't know, like I said, I don't know how I ended up on Skijoring TikTok, but I'm like so happy to be there. So if you guys are on TikTok, start looking this stuff up because it's incredible. And it really is a show. Like, people put on these big old fur coats and these big sort of like blade sunglasses, that have like the reflective. And it's just really a cool thing it does seem like it's growing, and you touched on it a little bit, Megan, but why do you think it's having this impact in Colorado specifically, although it sounds like you found it in another part of like Montana area? So why do you think this is having such a moment as a sport?
I think that a lot of the social media has helped a ton. I think, people just posting like these slow-mo edits, like there are a few specific photographers and videographers who show up and do this, and they do an incredible job. So that helps so much with the reach that this sport is getting. And, I think people are just realizing that there's a whole culture behind it. Like, sure, you can participate and have a killer time, or you can show up in like a fabulous outfit with like a felt hat and a fur coat and your boots. And I think people just love that, especially the fact that it's generally hosted in mountain towns. People love to get out there when it's snowy and, when the sun's shining down on you and the powder's on the ground. It's such a great feeling. And, like I said, you can be involved or you can be on the sidelines and have just as much fun. So I think that's a big reason that people are starting to be drawn to it a lot more.
Yeah, because I was reading a little bit about the history of the sport, and it started in Europe, and it started as a very practical, like, way to get around for people to, like, in Scandinavia, they're reading about, like, people being pulled on skis by reindeer or dogs and then later horses, but then it became a sport. And the sport aspect of it is, it kind of combines, I guess, like skiing, kind of, except you're on snow, with jumps. And what were some of the other things, Megan? Like, what does a typical run look like for you? And like, what is a good time? Like, how long is the course? Like, break down this sport for us.
Well, every course is a little bit different. A lot of the courses we've done are straight courses. So I know there's also curved tracks, which I don't have any experience in. But with a straight track, the horse essentially is just running in a straight line. So I only have to worry about starting and stopping. But the skier will have multiple turns. So, red, you go right, and blue, you go left. And if you miss a gate with even one ski, that's how you can get a penalty. And there's also a lot of times rings that the skier has to catch with their arm. So you'll have like a line or two of rings where the skier has to let go of the rope that's pulling them and, keeping them through the course just to catch a ring with their arm and keep it and then grab back onto the rope and keep going and cross the track behind the horse and go over jumps and stuff. But I think a lot of the courses we've been on, a good time is 15 to 18 seconds.
That is so fast.
Yeah, it definitely depends on the length of the course. I don't know if I have like a number for exactly how long they are, but it can totally vary. So like when we were in Estes, like a winning time, this is off the top of my head, but a winning time was maybe like 20 seconds. But in Grand Lake, it was shorter. So winning time was more like 14 or 15 seconds. So it really depends. Like some of them, they will have like a speedometer so that they can see like how fast you're actually going, which is pretty sick. But it's really all about the time. And like she said, those penalties rack up really fast. So like just in Grand Lake, for example, it'll vary from venue to venue, but a dropped ring was a 2-second penalty. And, that's pretty significant when you're going that fast. And then, a missed gate, that's what we call the turns that you have to make, is like a 5-second penalty. So you really want to have a clean run and not have any penalties, but that can be hard when you're going that fast. Like just staying in control and staying upright can totally be a challenge, but it's just a really high velocity sport.
Yeah. So Marley, how do we practice? How do we practice going left and right and grabbing rings? Like I'm imagining this happening, but then to imagine it in 15 to 20 seconds, like I'm picturing like a 2-minute ordeal and you're like, oh no, this is like 15. Like how do you practice this?
Totally. So, just like on the slopes, it's so funny. Like I've gone skiing since we started and it's just not the same. I'm like, this is not applicable really. Like, staying upright's one thing, but like those turns when you're being pulled like that, like, the force of the rope, like jerking you forward and, not losing your footing is definitely a challenge. So, as we're still new to this, and honestly, there hasn't really been snow on the ground since we've started really much in Fort Collins at all. So it's kind of one of those things you kind of just got to go out and do it. And that's your practice. So, it's a crazy feeling. And once a lot of people who get to like the higher levels of these sports, they learn all about rope management. And so that means like climbing up and down the rope, making sure you make your gates, making sure there's not slack that's then going to like jerk you forward, anything like that. That is a skill that we have a big goal to develop in like the coming season. But that's not something that we're quite comfortable with yet. So, for us, like a really solid run is if it's clean, if we have no penalties, and if I can just hold on and stay upright. So, that's like our current, like, if we can do that, we are so hyped. But, there are a lot of
great goal.
Totally. Yeah. There are a lot of skills that you can learn to develop just as you go. And, there are the things, like I said, you just learn by doing. It's just more time on the course that really gets those skills nailed down.
That is so, I imagine, you're a college student, so you're already in this like learning phase of your life, but I imagine it's just so fun to learn a new sport and to do it together and sort of have this excuse to travel all around, the West in Colorado and Montana. And so, I love it. Thank you so much for sharing with us a little bit more about this sport and how it's growing. And y'all get on the Skijoring TikTok with me because it is very, very, very fun. All right, we're going to switch gears now to our Something to Sip On segment. This is brought to you by the Sports Bra, which is a women's sports bar up in Portland, Oregon. And so the week of your episode, ladies, they are going to have a drink, a cocktail or a mocktail that is called the Marley and Megan, or maybe we'll call it the Apollo just to like make him feel included.
I like the Apollo.
The Apollo? Okay, we'll go with the Apollo. So what are you sipping on? What is like your favorite thing to grab after a skijoring competition?
I don't know. A lot of times we're towards the morning, so maybe a little mimosa is a good one to hit. But I also think any brewski beer is pretty popular for skijoring.
Definitely.
Just like a classic, like craft brew is what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what all the skijoers are hitting up usually after their run. So
it seems like that is like, for some reason, I was a whitewater rafting guide too. And so for some reason, the post outdoor activity beverage is a beer. I don't know why that always tastes better after an outdoor activity with a lot of adrenaline, but it always tastes good afterwards. Yeah. I love it. Okay. Well, luckily there's a lot of craft brews up in Portland, Oregon. So I'll leave it up to the Sports Bra crew to do maybe a little featured brewski or a mimosa. Who doesn't love a mimosa? All right. And then our last segment is called the Powered Up segment. And this is just a Q&A where we get to know you guys a little bit better. This is the first time we've had two people on the podcast at the same time. So we'll see how quickly this goes. But it's just like very basic, get to know you questions. So the first one is coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Tea.
Okay, what is your favorite ice cream flavor?
Cookie dough.
Cotton candy. I'm a child at heart.
Okay.
Oh, I love that. Okay, I like it. What is your go-to meal before skijoring?
I think we both have a hard time eating.
Yeah,
We're a bit anxious.
If I can get down a protein bar, I'll call it good.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Okay, so I know you're new in the sport, but so normally I ask what's the favorite place your sport has taken you, but why don't I ask you, where do you want this sport to take you?
Okay, I think one of our biggest goals next year is to make it to Big Sky, Montana. Just because that is where I first saw it, and that's, where my heart kind of said, you need to do skijoring. So I think making it up there next year or even the year after would be really cool.
Yeah, that's a huge goal. We'd love to go there. We'd love to hit Leadville. Those are both two places that we'd consider a huge milestone to make it to.
So how do you make it to it? Do you have to qualify, or how does that work?
Pretty much you just have to sign up on time. We were a little bit late to the game this year, I think. But yeah, and then just being sure that we can make the traveling because, Big Sky is a 10-hour drive from Fort Collins. And so hauling a horse in the snow for 10 hours is definitely a big burden on, mentally and physically. So for us and for the horse.
Totally. And also just feeling confident enough to be at that level. Like a lot of these bigger venues are just incredibly competitive, and we're all about having a good time, but at the same time want to stay upright. So once we've reached a level of comfort and confidence on the track, then I think that's when we'll feel ready to sign up for those.
Yeah, we want a good time, but we want to show off a little bit too. We both and. What is your dream vacation spot for each of you?
Anywhere in Europe with mountains, I'd love to go. Like the Dolomites in Italy. Super, super cool.
That's a good one. Anywhere really cool and beachy, Portugal or something like that.
I love Portugal. That place has stolen my heart.
So
it's so beautiful there. I love it. You would absolutely love it, Megan. What is the best piece of, as you started sort of chasing this dream, it could be about this dream or about anything else, but what is the best piece of advice you feel like you both have gotten?
I think that for this sport specifically, just show up. Like no one's gonna, really hold your hand and be like, okay, this is how you do this and this is how you do that. It's one of those things, you just figure it out. So, just to show up and be brave and talk to the people and get your name out there is like the number one thing that will lead to you feeling confident just going out there and being around these people. So yeah, I think just showing up for yourself is a huge one.
Yeah, a little bit like fake it till you make it kind of vibes. Like be confident, just go out there, do what you know how to do and learn from it. Not every run is going to be your best run, and that's okay. Figure out what you can do better next time and just take that away and grow.
I love that. And then the last question for each of you is, this is the PowHERful podcast. We're all about highlighting powerful women who are making a difference and trying new things and being brave within that. So what does the word powerful mean to each of you?
To me, I think it's just advocating for yourself. Just, even if you're in a male-dominated sport that isn't welcoming, kind of like I said, I'm kind of all about just going out and doing it. And so I think if you can just believe in yourself enough to just go out and do it anyways. Do it anyways. Do it when you're supported. Do it when you're not. Do it when you're hungry. Do it when you're tired. I think that's so powerful to me.
I love that.
Yeah, I definitely think it goes back to that confidence. Just being confident in yourself and confident in, your support system and people who are there for you, and just trusting yourself to be there and show up and put the work in.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, I am so excited to watch you guys continue to grow in this sport and as young women, and it has just been so fun. Maybe I'm going to have to hit you up, try and come out to a Skijoring competition in Colorado next year. That would be so fun. Oh my gosh. And I have to meet the infamous Apollo.
Oh, 100%.
Absolutely.
He's like basically like the head of our team. So
he's the team mascot. Yeah. He's like the mascot, the coach, the manager, all of the things all in one.
Is.
I love it. Well, Marley, Megan, thank you so much for being on the PowHERful podcast. I am so excited to watch you guys, continue to grow. It's been so fun getting to know you. And thanks for introducing us to a really fun new sport. Get on Skijoring TikTok, you guys. It's like highly entertaining.
Totally.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, it's been super nice to meet you and just to talk about ourselves honestly.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, it's so fun. It's the whole point of the podcast is to introduce people to cool new people, cool new sports, and this hits every single box. So PowHERful Pod Squad, thanks so much for being here. We'll see you next week. Marley and Megan, good luck in the spring semester and cannot wait to root for you next season.
Right on. Thank you.
This is a reminder to check us out every Tuesday, everywhere you get your podcasts. And if you really enjoy this and don't want to miss an episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button.